Hello, so good evening. Hopefully it's all live and you can hear me and see me. It looks like it should be according to the webcam and live video. So this is going to be an NBC CBRN theme stream, or ABC if you want to use the old terminology for it. Atomic biological chemical, or nuclear biological chemical, chemical biological radiological nuclear. So as it's a theme stream, please keep the stuff on topic, but with it being quite a broad array of stuff with NBC. So hello to everybody. I'll just get through the introduction bit first so you can sort of get an idea for it. So basically it will be stuff like, like obviously nuclear, biological and chemical weapons, protection stuff from them like gas masks, NBC suits and bunkers, like some of the crazy developments in the Cold War and things like that they did of NBC weapons. Right, cheers Shackleton. Yeah, I've added some more stuff to it. How well you'll be able to see it in this stream, I don't know. But I've got some fairly scientific printouts explaining some of the gases of World War One, and the nerve agents, both the G and the V series there. And then there's also a Lewisite and phosgene poster up there. The phosgene one might be a bit out of frame though, because sadly, unless after this stream I move them to below those shelves there, I might do that, I reckon. Then they'll be visible. Yeah, I'll do that once the stream ends, but then the disclaimer will block a bit of them. It doesn't really matter. Oh, isn't a GB5 technically closer to a World War II mask being, considering there's already the Chinese S10 copy, isn't there? The FMJ08 in Battlefield 5 from screenshots people have sent me. Yeah, I'm good, Peach. I've had my old man nap for about an hour and a half just now, so I've gotten up about 10 minutes ago to make a coffee and start the stream, because every day this week I've been pretty good at getting up sort of about 7 AM or earlier, so I'm sort of readjusting my body clock to it. But what I'm doing is sort of just having a bit of a nap sort of in the evening and then going back to work, so I can at least then fall asleep properly. Yeah, I'm going to be doing full 2 hours if I can manage it. I've had my nap before the stream, I've got my coffee. Yeah, it's that one. It says phosgene smells like mouldy hay or musty hay. Yeah, phosgene sort of meant to smell like mown grass or whatever. I mean, if you smell phosgene, it might already be too late because of how strong phosgene is. To give you some example of the dangers behind phosgene, even in modern industrial use, if there's a phosgene leak and it's a very relatively small one, somebody inhales it, they alert medical staff straight away that they know that they've inhaled phosgene, and they rush to hospital. There's still a good chance they'll die because of just how dangerous phosgene is. The problem is, if I turn on that Polish one, you won't hear it because it doesn't have an external speaker. It's just got that little headset that's on it there. I can turn that one on. That one's got a louder speaker on it, so I'll turn that one on, but I won't do the other one. I don't have the Czechoslovakian NBC suit, I'm afraid, so I can't do a video on that. Yeah, did you see the thing I sent you earlier today? I know it's not on topic for the stream, but this is quite funny. Did you see the thing I sent you earlier, Mike, about the door? Because that was quite embarrassing, but it surprised me how powerful the Red Rider was. What size is it, Alex? Because depending on the size of them, if you've got one smaller GP5, that would be why, but also if it's a newer condition GP5, it might not be as flexed yet, so it's, a bit more staticky. Yeah, there's loads as well, Shackleton, just off the coast of Dover and things as well, isn't there, where they just dump loads there. Yeah, but it depends, doesn't it, Jacob? The thing is that there's generally not a single nuclear weapon launched. This is the thing, because I think most of us in the world could say, if one city got nuked, we'd all be fine. But the issue is, in the event of thermonuclear warfare, enemies don't just nuke one city. It's, you know, all in. So pretty much everybody gets annihilated. Sorry, Jeff. I don't actually know, Geoff. Many books. I've got a few old books on things like this, but this isn't really like for modern CBRN stuff. It's like old World War One, World War Two equipment, and I've also got other similar books from different time periods that show, you know, like soldiers' equipment, and it obviously has gas masks and NBC gear in for the relative time periods. But I don't know. It'd be more worth reading in a lot of more recent stuff on it. I've done videos on drinking tubes, Calvin, but the Israeli ones I don't have the canteens for, so I can kind of rig them up for the Polish one, as I've done in videos before, but that's not perfect. Yeah, don't forget to like the stream, everybody. The Geiger counter's ticking away in the background. That depends, Space. I wouldn't say so. It depends, like, again, how big a conflict it was. The odds are better than they were during the Cold War. And the only reason for that is both Russia and America now have more accurate nuclear missiles, and in theory they're using lower yield warheads. And there's less of them because both nations have scaled back their arsenals a bit since like the 80s. So in theory it means that, you know, less nukes will get launched, and the nukes are more likely to hit military installations they're aimed at, and the actual nukes are smaller. It still would not be a clean sort of nuclear war by any imagination, but I think the odds are better for us. But the thing is, I would never trust, if there was a big nuclear war kicking off, that the superpowers would stick to just targeting military installations. I think it would escalate into any major population centres pretty quickly. Yeah, they're only like 30 odd quid each, but yeah, that's not related to being an NBC thing. What you can do, Maxi Boy, is, again, there's no such thing as no harm with radiation, but there's minimal risk. So most Geiger counters should come with a check source. That one's got a bit of Americanium on it. The Polish one, annoyingly, the check source was removed by the EU because they don't let you sell those for some reason. But I'll get my bowl of radioactive goodies out and I can show you a couple of different check sources. Just check this while I've got this out. Still only on about like 1 Rontgen because of how little radioactive stuff is on here. So what we've got in here is an old radium watch, some Fiesta ware, a thorium lamp mantle. This is uranium, sort of Vaseline glass, whatever they called it. So to give you some idea, most of these are pretty safe check sources, because obviously they make the Geiger tick, but they're not you know, insane or anything like that. Not as far as I'm aware, Miles, but background radiation in most of the world is very, very minimal. Like, I think when I've tested it before, like the counts per second and things like that, or counts per minute, sort of in my local area is something like 12 or 14 counts per minute, which is very, very minimal. I might have heard of that, Mike. Let me have a quick Google of it, and then I'll tell you, because the name sounds familiar, but... No, I've not seen that. It's got a Max von Sydow in it. I'll have to definitely check that out. At some point. Pravda, I don't know exactly when, but I will at some point. Yes, I have, Jeff. That's good, Bing. How long's the date left on it? Well, I think the people that hate the GP5 Frosty probably hate it because it's a mass-produced mask where loads and loads of people have them. But in terms of, in reality, the GP5 was very good for what it was, because remember, the Soviets actually made enough civilian respirators for pretty much their entire population, whereas most nations basically said, lol, you're fucked if you were a civilian in the Cold War. But in some way, I think that would be a good thing, in the sense being next to a nuclear arsenal. Not like you said you're fucked, but it would be quick at least, because I find the idea of, if you've ever seen anything like Fred's, the idea that you survive the initial sort of, exchange of nukes, but then slowly succumb to sort of starvation or radiation sickness or, disease because of how fucked everything is after a nuke. That would scare me a lot more, to be honest. If there was a nuclear exchange, and your survival chances were really low, I would probably want to be, instantly vaporized by a very close hitting nuke and not really knowing anything's happened, than sort of slowly suffering and wasting away over the course of a year or something before you die due to everything else. When you say the police helmet, do you mean the riot helmets, or do you mean the Kevlar 3A one I've got, the Pascut style one? But the FM12 fits quite well with the police helmet, the Kevlar one, because don't forget the armed police actually use FM12s and the regular police use FM12s. Yep, so an FM12 is a good choice for that. Yeah, I've used NBC suits in the rain before. They're very good for that, especially the old rubber ones, Rich. The only issue is sometimes if it's like a really hot, sweaty, muggy day with rain, you can then get really sort of, sticky and nasty in them. Let's see a peach. A few days recently, I know this is on topic, but I'll just answer you quickly, Bartos. We've had a few quite hot days, but recently we've had quite heavy exchanges of weather where we've had lots of thunderstorms and rain, so the temperature drops, you have a very, very wet day. Then immediately the next day, it's high 20s, low 30s, and it's very humid and everything because all the rainwater's sort of slowly evaporating in the heat, and then rinse and repeat basically. Well, no, if there was a CBRN attack, like where I live, there would never be a CBRN attack. No, you can say never, but I don't live in a sort of very high population centre thing. But if any of the nearby towns or anything like that were hit by a CBRN attack, assuming you heard about it on the news and knew something had happened, before there was any chance of contamination reaching you, I could definitely get all my NBC gear on. But if there was a full-blown military, nerve gas being dropped on everybody scenario, you'd be dead. You'd not have any chance to get a suit on in time. What highly flammable Zeppelin? I'd say, Jeff, the old sort of like we were saying earlier, the Polish L1 and L2 suits, or lots of those old Eastern European rubberized suits, because they're quite heat resistant. They're They won't fail if they get really wet, unlike a lot of the more modern NATO fabric suits, and they generally don't cost loads because they're Warsaw Pact sort of surplus. Yeah, as Richard just said, the East German rubber NBC suits, which are pretty similar to the Polish ones, there's a few minor differences, but overall the communist Poland and East German ones are very similar. Yeah, for £12 that's a very good buy, because even if you never use it as an NBC suit, you can use it for any sort of job where you don't want to get wet and you want to be, you know, kept dry and protected. NBC suits are also very good in the winter. For example, if it's really cold weather, you can wear an NBC suit on top of other clothing and it traps the heat really well. NBC suits are really unpleasant in the summer, but in the winter they are lovely if you want like a budget sort of bit of cold protective gear. But anyway, as I said, I'd like to keep this stream on topic with NBC CBRN stuff rather than it being how's the weather in your area kind of thing. If you mean an Israeli M15, they're good masks. I like the M15 quite a lot. It's the best of the Draeger M65 style masks in my collection. I've not got the Greek Cobra, which is another one that's similar to that. But it makes a good face seal. It's got 5 adjustable straps. The top strap isn't as adjustable, annoyingly, as the other straps, because it's one of those masks where the top strap uses a different kind of system to the other 4 straps on it, but you can adjust the top strap, it's just not very convenient to do it. But yeah, all in all, the M15 is pretty durable. The only kind of flaw I find with it is you can't really look down in it, because you've got the big filter at the bottom of the mask, so if you try and do that, the filter will collide with your chest and you can't look down. And because it's triangular lenses, you can't see down all that well anyway. So it is a bad mask in the sense of, I hope you're not having to look down at your feet too much while you're doing something. But otherwise it's a very good mask. Right, let me try and count them up, Miles, because I'll have to do it in real time, because I don't know off the top of my head. Right, so my most modern suit I've got there is my Polish Fu-1 suit that's down there in its bag. So that's 1. I've also got, under the bed, an unopened British Mark III NBC suit, so that's 2. I've also got a British Mark III NBC suit that I have got open, so that's 3, but that's essentially a duplicate. I've got a British Mark IV NBC suit, so that's 4. I've got a modern sort of German or late West German suit, that's 5. I've got the 2 variants of East German suit, that's 7. I've got the 2 variants of Polish suit, the L1 and the L2, so that's 9. And I think that's all of them. Oh, and I've got the DuPont Taichem suit as well, haven't I? So that's 10. So yeah, I think 10 suits in total. Maybe just put scrim netting over it, Calvin. Yeah, thanks, Mike. Don't forget to time people out. Like I said, I'll give you discretion to do that, because as I said, it's a theme stream tonight, so it's a bit annoying when you want to keep a stream on topic and people keep going on about stuff that's not related to the stream. I don't know if I'd say I'm afraid of it, just because it's one of those things where I think your chances are so low anyway in an advance like that, it's not worth worrying about, you know what I mean? There's some things like that that can be quite liberating, in the idea that, because it's not hovering... I mean, if you were in a scenario like the Cold War, where the risk of it might be hovering over your head, you know, all day, every day in your family's lives, then it would be a lot more worrying. But I don't think the possibility that we'll have a nuclear war is very high at the moment. And if there was a major nuclear war, you know, you're so doomed. I find that something that isn't really worth worrying about. I mean, I'd find the idea a lot scarier of, like, sort of a dirty bomb being used, or like another Chernobyl-style disaster, where you have a big radiation leak. There isn't really anything countries can do to protect against nuclear attack, other than have, enough nuclear weapons themselves as a deterrent. That's the sad thing, the genie's out the bottle when it's come to nukes. Because so many nations have them, and so many nations have decent stockpiles of nukes now. The only deterrent you can really have is the mutually assured destruction one. So, would it be better if nukes weren't invented in the first place? That's hard to say, because it would certainly be better for our planet, but would we have then had a massive World War III during the Cold War? Because there was nothing really stopping the conventional armies from attacking each other. Do you still wish that, Ian? I certainly wouldn't. But as I said, because I'm chronically ill anyway, in that sort of proper shit hits the fan event, I'd be so fucked anyway, it wouldn't matter. Well, I wouldn't say any more, Charles, no. At the time, yes, you can see the maps of the Chernobyl radiation, because obviously when the reactor was still on fire, the smoke was being blown by the wind, so then whenever, wherever the smoke was blown by the wind, that's where the radiation cloud went. But nowadays, no, because anything that's not in a sarcophagus or, in other parts of Pripyat, unless it's picked up on people's boots and walked out the zone or anything like that, not really. I've already got a Discord server, as I've said many times, but that's not on topic with this video, is it? No, I'm probably going to do that next year, Titus. Right, when you say a standard NBC filter, Calvin, do you mean an ABE filter or an ABEC filter? Because depending on what sort of generation of filters you talk about, lots of filters during the Cold War only used to be ABE protective. Now most of them are ABEC. But anything that's not an organic vapour, an inorganic vapour, an acidic gas, or like ammonia for an ABEC one, so things like mercury can get through, carbon monoxide can get through. There isn't a best NBC filter. In theory, the more letters on the ABEC type thing, the better, and the higher the numbers, the better, but it depends how bulky and heavy you want the filter to be, and if you're really expecting to need it against certain things. Oh, the Israeli civilian filters, the Type 80, are the same as the military uses, as far as I'm aware, if you're on about the proper Type 80 filters, not the older filters Israel used. And as far as I'm aware, they are rated the same as US C2A1 filters, so I'm pretty sure they're ABEC 1 P3, or sort of something like AB2 EK1 P3. But Israeli filters are pretty damn good, so yeah, for most prepping purposes, an Israeli filter would be fine. I probably won't see you much on streams then, will I, Mike, at the moment? I know that's a bit off topic for what the stream's about, this one, but yeah, because I've got the play Thursday and Friday this week, so I'm not in Thursday and Friday evening. Then Saturday, if you're not streaming, Saturday would be the day I'd be in to watch the stream. So ships in the night, but oh well, I'll see you next week, won't I, if you're streaming then. Yeah, Bing, charcoal can leak out of NBC suits. And don't forget to like the stream, everybody, because there's a lot more viewers in at the moment than the likes. So yeah, charcoal can leak out of NBC suits. In terms of... it depends how much you want to spend, Bing, and you bear in mind you don't have to get a proper NBC suit either. If you got waterproof trousers, especially like fishing waders, and a waterproof shirt, like a jacket, like a big proper raincoat, that would work the same as an NBC suit, because most NBC suits are just impermeable material. And if you're willing to spend a lot, things like modern Polish NBC suits, or any kind of modern suit that's just been surplused or whatever that's still in date, is good. But bear in mind, like, yeah, I'm the same. I don't trust the charcoal sort of impregnated suits anywhere near as much as the less comfortable rubberized suits. Right, the gloves I've got I really like, Bossness. A lot of people have recommended the British Army gloves. I think I've got some somewhere, but I can't remember where I've put them. So jury's out on how good the British Army ones are. The ones I've got I use the most are my West German gloves, or modern German gloves. They're thick butyl, but they're a bit clumsy, but they're not as clumsy as some of my gloves. A lot of my Eastern European kind of Cold War gloves are very mitten-like, so that you can't do much with your fingers. So I'm afraid I can't really give you a good recommendation for gloves, but if you search chemical gloves into somewhere like eBay or Amazon, you will find a lot of ones available. It wouldn't surprise me if there's civilian kind of branded chemical gloves that are probably better. Like, they're a bit more expensive, but they're probably better than some of the gear militaries use. Yeah, some of the Gore-Tex raincoats, Bing, as long as the Gore-Tex is in good condition, you can tie those up around a gas mask very well. Like the ones where they've got the 2 pull cords in the neck and everything. Mark III suits, probably £20 or less. Mark IV suits, £30 or less. But buy them vacuum sealed, because you can still get them vacuum sealed. When you say a CNN attack, do you mean the news is attacking you? Or do you mean like CBRN or NBC or whatever? It more depends on the filtration system. Because basically if you have a bunker without a filtration system and you weren't going to suffocate, it's going to offer you no protection. You'd still need a mask. If the bunker was only like a yard under the ground, but it was airtight and had a filtration system, then you wouldn't need any protective gear. I've already done videos on my rebreather, Ernie. Search through my channel for them. I don't know if there's a Trump respirator, but I'm sure if there was, it would be the best respirator, the best, folks. You know, nobody does respirators better than me. I gotta tell you, folks, it's the best. It'd be something like that, wouldn't it? Yeah, I've got the 95 DPM British Gore-Tex one and the Flecktarn German one. The Flecktarn German one's a bit older, but it's a bit better in terms of quality of like the pull cords and things like that, but both would work quite well as an NBC gear. Oh, my video's set to top chat, not live chat. Let me change that in case I've missed anything. Yeah, the only thing is, make sure when you get dish gloves, you get good ones, because I know from work, sometimes the yellow rubber gloves we get aren't as good as others, you know, like, because we get them obviously through, like, a chemical supplier for all, like, our gear at work. Some brands aren't as good as others. I might start writing down which brands are good and which aren't, in case anybody's interested in that. But yeah, just bear in mind, like, probably official marigolds are a bit better than some of the cheapo supermarket imitations of the marigolds. Because, yeah, I found with some of those kind of rubberized gloves, some can still split and rip very easily. I'll do more gaming video streams at some point, but more people like these sort of streams. Yeah, there's a very good thing, Bing, I don't know if you've seen this, which is really interesting. It was made by the guy who did Threads before he did Threads, and it was called something like QED, A Guide to Armageddon. And it's what inspired him to then do Threads a year later. But in that, they show loads of different kinds of bunkers you can get, and they show the thing that, you know, there's the one with the hand crank, so you can keep it going by hand if you need to, which is quite cool. I don't know if I believe that the Russians did it, as I've said quite a few times, but there's a lot of controversy around that. But as I've said before, if you know dangerous nerve agents are meant to be, you probably can't read the writing on that, so I'm just going to go a bit closer and read some of these to you, to explain how dangerous nerve agents are, right? So here's Tabun, the first nerve agent ever made by Nazi Germany. Smell and appearance. Clear, colourless liquid, though impure tabun can have a brown appearance. Pure tabun is odourless, but it often has a faint fruity odour due to impurities. It was synthesised in 1936, discovered accidentally by Gebhard Schrader, a German chemist who was investigating organophosphates as pesticides. The median lethal concentration is 400 milligram minutes per cubic metre. The median lethal dose is 1,000 milligrams, so a gram per kilogram of body weight. So for something like tabun, which is the weakest of the nerve agents, if you weighed 70 kilograms, you'd need about 70 grams of tabun to kill you, which is still pretty small, isn't it? Okay, then sarin. Sarin is pretty famous. Medium lethal concentration is 100 milligram minutes per cubic metre, and the median lethal dose is 1,700 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So the median lethal dose is slightly higher on sarin and tabun, but sarin is more deadly if it's inhaled, basically. Okay, now Soman. This is a lot stronger. Median lethal dose 50 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So again, if you weighed 70 kilos, rather than it needing 700 grams to kill you, it would now need just a couple of grams. So you can see how dangerous that is. Right, now let's go to the V agents, the really dangerous ones. I'll just read out VX because it's the strongest nerve agent of the V series. But it should have the thing here. Oh, there's the VX one. Median lethal concentration 15 milligrams per cubic meter. Median lethal dose 10 milligrams per person. Not per kilo, per person, 10 milligrams. So in theory, a gram of VX could kill, what, 100 people? Something like that. So that gives you the idea of how lethal nerve agents can be. They're weapons of mass destruction. So when it's implied Russia has a nerve agent that is as deadly as VX, if not deadlier than VX, and they only managed to kill one person with it when they were indiscriminately spreading it around a town, that isn't how nerve agents work. That's cool, Ian. When I shave my hair, Rox, just to quickly go to your thing, because I know you've asked this before, and I think I have answered you before, but just in case you didn't hear it. I do it without the guard on when I shave my hair, so that would be under 3mm, but I'm not sure the exact length. So sub 3mm when I shave my hair off. At the moment, I'm not sure how long my hair would be, because when my hair gets a bit too long and annoying, then I shave it again, basically. Over 100 space, but I'm not sure the exact number. Right, it could be that there's just talc or something in it, Frosty, which irritates his eyes, or more seriously, it could be that the mask was used, or tested with something like tear gas, and there's residue of CS powder on the mask still, something like that. Yeah. That's funny, because I've got a Fu-1 suit, Bartos, but I think there was a bit of corruption surrounding those, weren't there, were they? Because mine was essentially brand new and still foil wrapped and everything when I got it, so I think it's one of those things where, again, probably people involved had been selling them that should have gone to the Polish army, because, you know, corruption, but that same stuff happens over here with military equipment being sold off when it shouldn't. But yeah, the L1 and L2 suits will at least stay around for ages, won't they, in terms of they take ages to rip and fall apart. Now, with my workspace, the work I do at the weekends, I do have to work with quite nasty chemicals. You know, ones where you have to wear eye protection, they recommend wearing respiratory protection, gloves, you know, you can't mix certain chemicals, you need to know the concentrations and dilutions. It's nothing NBC related, but it kind of does tie in. And a lot of the time when I'm in, and other people are in, they always ask me to deal with the chemicals, because they know I'm kind of the least scared by them. Because I sort of just know what I'm doing with them. It totally depends, Charles. With any filter, it depends on how new the filter is and what it's exposed to. The higher the concentration of gas in the air, the less time the filter lasts. The more you breathe, like the heavier you breathe through it, the less time the filter lasts. Certain gases wear down filters faster than others. So, as much as you could probably get a more accurate estimate by going with an Israeli Type 80 filter, rather than just saying a filter in general, there's no real way of knowing, to be honest, because if there was very low concentrations of gas and you were breathing very slowly, it would probably last 24 hours plus. If you were in a massive cloud of gas, but not enough that the filter would fail, and you were breathing heavily, maybe the filter would last 20 minutes. It's kind of impossible to answer that. I'm not a nuclear physicist, but fusion bombs, as in hydrogen bombs, certainly did produce radiation still, not as much as atomic bombs as far as I'm aware. But Castle Bravo was a fusion bomb, because it was a thermonuclear bomb, and Castle Bravo irradiated a hell of an area. I mean, with nukes it depends if they're ground burst or air burst and everything as well, but I doubt fusion is clean, but it also depends what nuclear material is you're using, because apparently thorium is a lot cleaner than uranium, for example, or plutonium. But I know Poland's upgrading a lot of stuff, aren't they, though, Bartos? Because they've got the they've got like a lot of mask upgrade things, but that's interesting. Like why Poland has the FP5 filter is so they can keep a lot of the old sort of communist era masks in service, and they have a filter that fits both NATO masks and the older masks, rather than needing to do like parallel filter production, which is actually quite clever. I've seen a bit of glitching on my one, but I don't know if that's YouTube lagging. I don't know what would be causing that. If it's only been doing it this one stream, there was a setting I changed in the colour settings to make the stream look a bit more naturalistic, so the lighting should look a bit less yellow in this stream. But if that's causing problems, the next time I do a stream I'll turn that off. Nuclear, biological, chemical, Jeffrey. It depends if you want to have a heavy filter on your belt or not, or a small filter on the mask. But don't most fusion bombs still have like a very small fission bomb in them? Like if you look at the kind of sideways diagrams of most of the hydrogen bombs, they've got like a really small plutonium core or something. That is detonated first, isn't it? And then that is what causes the fusion bit to kick off. Alright, cool, Mike. I'll know what to change for the next one. All it was is I was playing about with the colour settings earlier, at least that's the only thing I can think of, and there was a setting in there I changed because it made the lighting look more naturalistic on the webcam. But if that's causing a problem, because I've changed it away from the default setting now, I'll just put it back, it means it will look a bit yellower, but I don't think it caused problems before. But it could just be an internet thing, or just the software being a bit buggy, I don't know. At the moment, maybe that Geiger counter, but I really like the SLR as well. Tell you what, for a bit of the ASMR in the stream, let's take the alpha radiation cap off. Actually, that I won't need to do that, will I, for doing this? Let's put a little bit of just pop that there so it ticks a bit more in the background. Alright, that's very interesting, Ian. I know they had a deuterium core, didn't they, in the George device, which they called the alarm clock bomb, and that was technically the world's first thermonuclear bomb, although that was boosted fission rather than an actual fusion bomb. But yeah, all that stuff's very interesting, but the problem is, because I'm not all that into physics, there's a level to where I can understand it, and there's kind of then a level where my sort of understanding just goes out the window. Depends on what sort of model you get. The cheapest Geiger counters you can get at the moment, just us talking about NBC stuff, Michael, but I'll still be talking about NBC stuff for another hour and 20 minutes or so. So with Geiger counters, the cheapest ones you can get in the UK, I think, are some Chinese ones that, well, technically there are some you can get that just do gamma and X-rays, and they are very cheap. You can also get ones that just do, like gamma and X-rays that plug into a mobile phone, and they're only about £30. But if you want sort of what we'd consider a proper Geiger counter, it needs to do beta at least as a minimum as well. So then you're going to need like some of the Chinese ones that are a bit cheaper, or the SOEX ones, and then you're looking for about £70 to £100 upwards. And then if you want something with an alpha probe, like that one there, you're going to probably have to spend 150 plus, because they're a bit more of a specialist kind of like lab piece of equipment. Yeah, and as in theory, no limit is there, Ian, to the size they can make a thermonuclear bomb. If they have, it's just literally the casing size, because wasn't that like the kind of idea that some of the nations had in the Cold War, was that they could literally bury a massive, massive bomb if they wanted to end the world. You know, like they'd excavate kind of almost like a mine kind of thing, and then just build a huge nuke in there that they'd probably make salted cobalt as well, to poison everything. That's basically the plot in Doctor Strangelove, that they have the Doomsday device. But, yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that in theory it's only how, you know, heavy can it be or bulky can it be and still be deliverable by missile or aircraft. Sadly, Maxi Boy, as I already said earlier in the stream, I can't recommend you much other than some stuff like this, which are very good books if you're interested in like bits of equipment from certain bits of history. But as far as I'm aware, there's not like an encyclopedia of gas masks or anything like that, and no, I'm not going to write one. But yeah, you can get lots of books that detail certain nations' military equipment, and they often go into detail on the respirators and everything there. Oh, that's cool, but yeah, they're coming down, Bing. There's no reason for me to buy another, because I've got that gamma radiation alarm there. I've got the Polish one that does beta and gamma and X-rays. I've got that one that does alpha, beta, gamma and X-rays. And I've got my SOEX one that does beta, gamma and X-rays. But yeah, it is good that they are coming down in price. I mean, if they got really cheap, maybe I'd buy one just to do a video comparing the accuracy of it to my other Geiger counters. When you say threads, you mean threads, as in THREADS, as in, like, you know, fabric threads. If you Google threads spelled correctly, 1984, there's generally copies on YouTube or places like Dailymotion, or you can just buy it on Amazon. Oh, cool. Sorry, I missed that comment. What was that about Calvert and Hatch? Oh, have I ever been in a nuclear bunker? Yeah. Calvert and Hatch, I went last year, Michael, around August. And that was very good, very interesting. Annoyingly, when I was in Prague, I didn't know that there was a massive nuclear bunker you could visit in the subway system, or else I'd have gone there. I've also seen some other sort of non-nuclear bunkers, you know, just like generic kind of air raid shelter kind of bunkers in other buildings and things, but yeah, I'd certainly like to go to more nuclear bunkers. They're very interesting. In theory, there could be, Maxi Boy, but sadly most sellers know that they can charge quite a bit for Geiger counters. Like that DP66M, when I got that, that was like 60 or 70 quid. Now, they tend to be 150 quid plus. I filmed a video already on the 177 pistol, but that won't be live for a month. And tomorrow I should get a video filmed on the Red Rider. Yeah, cool. Sounds interesting, Michael. I bet it'd be interesting. No, that sounds interesting, but no, I've not been to Hat Green. I've heard of it, but oh, that's one of the interesting ones, isn't it? Because it actually looks different from the outside than a lot of the other nuclear bunkers do. Whereas lots of them are very similar to Calvert and Hatch, where they kind of built them, you know, to a certain sort of design, but Hat Green actually looks different, which is quite cool. There's actually a very small nuclear bunker in Oxford they built for the Oxford sort of War Emergency Council, but sadly that's privately owned now and they don't open it anymore. But at one point that was open for things, but I never went in, but I've seen photos of it. I've got Fallout 4 and I've got Fallout 76 because that was donated to me by Laserpoint Productions. But yeah, maybe I'll stream some Fallout 4 at some point. Fallout New Vegas is my favourite one. Alright, cool, Nazi. Enjoy it, but I don't know if enjoy is the right word for Freds. Alright, I'm glad you liked the video, Space. Tell you what, just for now, I'll move that away from the Geiger counter because it ticking that loudly is slightly distracting. That'll do. The interesting thing is, Ian, my one isn't eating CO2. It's got, I don't know if it's because it's a later model of it than you had, but it's got the adjustable thing in the bottom so you can actually adjust how much CO2 it vents of each shot. And when I was doing it, you could get 6 or 7 mags out at decent power before it started dropping, and then you could still shoot it a bit more, but obviously it was very low power. I might actually very well do that being when I get the new PC, because it would obviously be a lot more capable of you know, streaming and playing games at the same time, because obviously it will have a much better processor and GPU and everything in it, and better cooling and everything else. Yeah, they've got the same thing there, Calvert and Hatch sign saying secret nuclear bunker, but obviously that's because it's a disused bunker, isn't it, and it's now open as a museum. Do you mean the German Zodiac suit, Space? That one, I don't have, so I can't comment on it. But most of the other German suits are not rubber, they are fabric. I mean, the East German suits are rubber, and I like those. The West German suits, though, the modern ones, are charcoal. Ah, yeah, so I've probably just got a later generation of that pistol, I imagine, Ian. But I do know when I was looking at reviews of it that some people did say it bled a lot of CO2 on the older models, so maybe they've just improved it now where it uses less CO2. Yeah, so with mine, you get 8 shots in the rotary magazine at either end. So, like I said, you get 6 or 7 mags worth out of it before it starts losing power significantly. So that's like 8 times 8 basically. And remember, I'm shit at maths in my head, especially if I'm streaming. So 8 times 8, 64. So yeah, mine would get about 64 odd shots before you start significantly losing power, Richard. So that sits somewhere within that number you said as well. Does Venezuela have nuclear weapons though, Michael? Or as in the modern Russians would put nuclear equipment over in Venezuela? That's interesting, Ian. I hope you can have a relax now, mate. Yeah, I've been on 50 minutes, but as said, I'm going to do 2 hours tonight, so I've got another hour and 10 minutes to do, roughly. Right, hope you enjoy the videos, Luke. I've done a video recently, Space, on showing beta radiation penetrating NBC suits, but I can do more videos like that because I do want to do one at some point when I get the time to do it, so maybe I'll get a chance to film it next week because I've got a busy week this week. But I wanted to do one where I try and demonstrate using bits of lead and that to stop gamma radiation. At the moment, it is 13 minutes to 9 o'clock Aegis in the evening, so 20:47. Yeah, isn't that because CO2, when it starts getting cold, Richard, doesn't work as well? Because I know with one of my friends, he has one of those green gas, like, airsoft pistols, which is sort of similar to CO2, but rather than being a canister, you kind of fill it up like a butane lighter. And he has the problem that when you first fill it up, it doesn't shoot very well because it's too cold. And then if it's a cold day, it takes ages to get working, but if it's a hot day, you can use it relatively quickly after refilling. If you mean the one that they've got in the Marshall Islands, yeah, I know about that. That's where the Americans dumped loads of nuclear waste from the Pacific tests, wasn't it? And then they just put concrete over it, but now it's seeping into the sea. For me, Thomas, my favourite one is the Shums, SHMS. Yeah, so Russia's reinforcing it, is it? Probably to prevent regime change, I guess, over there, Michael. What's very interesting, do you know about the nuclear bunker over Dover Castle? Because this is quite funny. So they've got all the wartime tunnels and bunkers under Dover Castle, like the World War II ones with all the radio rooms and that you can tour, which is very interesting. But they also have a Cold War era nuclear bunker under there. But it was one that they got partially through building and scrapped, because they actually found out when they'd finished building a lot of the nuclear bunker down there, that although it was a nuclear bunker, the chalk cliffs weren't actually good enough to stop radiation coming through, because chalk is too porous. So basically you could build a nuclear bunker down there, but it would just be too vulnerable. Like, if the radiation levels were high enough, they'd seep in anyway, and I guess a nuclear bomb going off near the chalk cliffs might just collapse all of them anyway. No, I don't have any animal gas mask space. When you say PMK but with cheeks, I don't know which one you mean by that. I know there was a prototype one that was like that, but that was a prototype. No idea. Most masks you can't get replaceable parts for, sadly. Right, for children, the only mask I can really recommend that's modern, that would work quite well, is whatever Israel currently issues to children, because obviously that's expected to work and it's modern. Most nations don't make civilian gas masks, like less for children. But where Israel has the 4A1 mask for adults, they essentially do the same mask but in a smaller size for children. So that would be your best bet, because it would be 40mm NATO. And it's, you know, like, made by a country that obviously needs masks. With most modern Russian masks, sadly I haven't seen them turn up for decent prices yet, but at some point I'll get them if they turn up for sensible money. That doesn't surprise me, Lenovo, because I mean, you can get things like atropine as sort of an antidote for nerve agents, but it's not an exact science as far as I'm aware. But it wouldn't surprise me if there is stuff that you can put in a mask that counters the effect of tear gas if it does leak in. The Finnish M39 masks, they're very good. Or do you mean a different M39? That makes sense, Nicholas, because the problem is for some children is if they're too young, they won't have the lung strength to pull air through a filter properly. So it makes sense if they've got some sort of system with them so you could move air through them. The only other child's mask I know of really is the Soviet PDF ones, and they're 40mm GOST, so you need things like Polish FP5 filters or modern Russian or Chinese filters. Or I think there's some Yugoslavian children's masks, but bear in mind with some of these masks, due to the age of them, they're not going to work that well. I'm pretty sure I've already done a video like that, Rob. They don't put cement in the barrel uprising, but it is deactivated, yes. You can't wear it with the green filter space because it contains asbestos. Well, you could, but it's not worth endangering yourself over it. But you can put things like the FP5 filters on GP5s and things like that. Do they get forcibly removed, Michael, or what? I did the BEM recently, but I'm pretty sure I've done a video on the MP5. Let me search my channel, because I'm sure I did a video like that. I did one with like rifle compatibility tests with the MP5. But I think it would probably work pretty well with most helmets. Right, let me have a search. Polish MP5. Let me just search MP5 mask, because annoyingly YouTube's search function isn't working very well now. So even though I'm searching MP5, I know I've done more videos than this, but half of them aren't turning up. Right, there's Polish MP5 gas mask shooting tests, Polish MP5 gas mask drinking tube tests. I can do a helmet one with it at some point. That won't really be a priority video. It should work fairly well with most helmets, to be honest, due to the shape of it. It's already registered uprising because it's deactivated. It's a creepypasta, boy, it's not real. Cheers. Yeah, I've had to block a few people over that video, Hotshot, annoyingly, because I've had loads of people being really disrespectful over that, and it really pissed me off. Like, I had one person earlier who made, like, a rude comment about liquidators, so I just removed his comment. And then he came back saying, like, why are you such a coward removing my comment? And he made the same comment again, so I thought, right, you're getting blocked then, aren't you, you prick? But, you know, it's one of those things where I have a lot of respect for the people involved in the cleanup at Chernobyl, so it really pisses me off where you've probably got some kid sitting behind their keyboard, you know, going like, oh no, they weren't really brave, you know. I'm not going to say exactly what he said, not see, but he was being very disrespectful and childish. You know, so he deserves his block, to be honest. I should have just blocked him the first time rather than removing his comment. But as I said, I'm trying to be a bit more tolerant now with blocking people. Where, you know, the first time they say a comment that's a bit rude, I try and just remove it now. But then if you're like him and you immediately make the same comment again, then call me a coward for removing the comment, it's just being horribly disrespectful. Enjoy your fucking block. Yeah, it probably is. Alright, see you, Luke. I'll still be on this stream for another hour if anybody's wondering, because I'm doing a 2-hour stream tonight. With XL valves on shim style mask, Sonny, there's two valves. There's one inside the mask itself, and then you've got that valve lower down. So you don't need to be too concerned. I mean, ideally, you don't want it flapping open, but it's not the end of the world, because there is two XL valves in the shim style mask. If you want to test the mask, put the mask on with a filter, then hold something smelly outside the XL valve and see if you can smell it. If you can't smell anything coming through the XL valve, it means even with the droopy bit, it's not a problem. It's not really related to the stream, Thomas, but I'll very quickly say the L85A1 was one of the worst rifles ever built. The A2 fixed a lot of its problems. Yep, the UK is one of like the 4 or 5 nuclear powers in the world. Well, I think actually now the nuclear powers are US, Russia, China, UK, France, India and Pakistan, aren't they? And probably Israel. Oh, and North Korea now, I guess, technically. So there's actually a lot more nuclear powers than used to be. But yeah, I think the UK was the 3rd nation to get nuclear weapons, because it was originally the US, then Russia, or the Soviet Union, and then I think the UK was the 3rd in the arms race to get nukes, and then France was quite soon behind. Well, I'm assuming most people are nice to Luke until they leave dickhead comments, but you know what I mean. I think there is some heating process that can be done to charcoal Lenovo to activate it. But activated charcoal is essentially just very, very porous charcoal. So stuff sticks to it. So that's why gas and vapours stick to it. Because they're vapours that are too small to be caught in a particle filter. But because the charcoal is very porous, as it moves past the charcoal, it clings to the charcoal. I'm sure you can find a very good explanation somewhere online if you look it up. I don't know exactly how it works, I just know it works. Maybe they don't want to actually look bad, Michael. Or maybe they don't even just care enough to do that. They used to do Protect and Survive, but... yeah, that's my thoughts exactly, Angry Asian Boy, but I don't want to keep going back into that now. Yeah, if nobody else had nuclear weapons, I could see the idea of denuclearizing, but I'd never trust people to, you know, nations to say, no, we don't have nukes, because they probably would say that even if they did. I can understand people wanting to lower the amount of nukes you have, but you can only do that if you have bilateral talks with other nations, and there's all like a very clear process where they lower their stockpiles. But to simply go, oh no, we can, if we believe in like magic, you know, in fairy dust where nobody has nukes, it's not going to happen. Yeah, essentially things like Brita filters do work like gas mask filters because they have a particle filter and they have the charcoal filter. It's just gas mask filters are on a bigger scale and generally impregnated with other things to work against more kinds of thing. But yeah, a Brita filter does in theory work like a gas mask filter. Whether or not you could get a cheek filter mask and put Brita filters in the cheeks, I don't know, but that might be an interesting idea. The FM12 only comes in 3 sizes, Aegis, 1, 2 and 3, but otherwise it's the same, 1 being the largest, 3 being the smallest. I don't know if a size 3 FM12 correlates with a size 3 or a size 4 S10, but it works the same way sizing. Well, nuclear winter is one of those things where scientists argue, and scientists are a lot smarter than me, whether or not nuclear winter would happen. But I personally think there's probably quite good evidence that if you had a massive exchange of nukes and lots of dirt was thrown up into the atmosphere, things would get colder. You know, and the sun would be blocked out to a degree. How bad it would be in the grand scheme of things, I don't know, but I think if you've had a massive exchange with thousands of nuclear warheads, you probably would be dead at this point, so you might not need to worry. See you, Bing. Yeah. There's pretty much bunker spaces for everybody, isn't there, in Switzerland? And they all have, like, militia kind of military training. So, yeah, you wouldn't want to ever invade or attack Switzerland, would you? Yeah, thank you. I like the, that's one of my favourite DX there, the SLR. The FM12 is the one with the drinking tube, the CT12 is the one without the drinking tube. But they're like the S10s, the S10-2, basically. Because it was the mask Avon made to replace S10 production of a very similar mask. And I think it's currently like the cheapest military style mask Avon still makes. Because they do lots of advanced things like the M50s and the FM53s now, but they still make the FM12 because lots of poorer nations prefer to buy masks like that because they're just simple and work. I'm not sure, Michael, because there's lots of like prepping channels I'm sub to, but I don't watch their videos very frequently. There's quite a good one called Serious Survivor who's given me shout-outs a few times. When he's done like gas mask videos, and he's done some quite good prepping videos. But I don't tend to watch all that many prepping videos anymore, just because, as I said, because I'm chronically ill. I don't kind of think too much about prepping, just because, as I said, there's not much point for me other than stuff like flooding or that kind of stuff, you know. I think I've done most of the decoration I want to do now, Iron Man. I've got posters on chemical weapons and gas masks and everything. Gas masks on display, Geiger counters on display. Have fun, bossness. Right, see you, Richard. Thanks for coming on. Yes, I do, but that's not related to what this stream's about, Soviet guy. Don't forget to like the stream, everybody, if you've not done so far. When you say nuclear centres, do you mean bunkers, or what? Or CBRN? Or, like, nuclear silos, or what? I think the most likely shit hit the fan scenario would just be localised problems in your area, like big droughts or flooding or stuff like that. I personally think the most likely sort of doomsday shit hit the fan event would be something like, and this is related to CBRN and NBC because it's biological, another massive flu outbreak, a bit like the 1918 flu outbreak, or some sort of antibiotic resistant bacteria. I suppose a big solar flare could knock out a lot of electricity systems, but I personally think it'd probably be some sort of very easy to transmit disease that would be the next big kind of thing that kills a lot of people. Well, for doing stuff around the house, that one, because it's a scientifically accurate one with an alpha probe. My SOX 01M is my one I'd carry around on me if I ever needed to carry one on me, because it's very small, fits in a pocket, you can charge it from a PC or a plug socket, you know. As I was saying earlier in the stream, Daniel, I think unless you were in a country that was totally not attacked at all, like Australia or something, you know, that's not even saying that Australia wouldn't be attacked, I just mean if Australia wasn't attacked. I think for most people, yeah, the sad reality is if there was a full-size Cold War style exchange, you're probably better to go out quickly than sort of dwindle away over the course of a month or a year afterwards from radiation poisoning, you know, lots of diseases that come back because there's no sanitation, that kind of stuff. Yeah, I've seen the Book of Eli, that's quite a fun film. I've seen The Road as well. A Boy and His Dog is a very good old nuclear kind of post-apocalyptic film. I've not read the book, but the film's good because that was the influence behind Mad Max. And then Mad Max is obviously one of the big influences behind the Fallout games, and they quote both A Boy and His Dog and Mad Max as influences behind Fallout. So if you've not seen A Boy and His Dog, it's definitely very interesting. Politics. Is that a mod or what? I'll quickly Google it, but Anomaly is a standalone stalker mod powered by an x64 version of Open X-Ray. Ooh, built upon last day. The mod continues its way of expanding, adding new features and winning. This looks very interesting. So is there a release version of it? I assume there must be if you say if I played it. Oh, I'm very interested in this. Thank you, I'm going to bookmark this now. So is it a bit like a Call of Pripyat kind of thing? Not Call of Pripyat, sorry, what's the one? Call of Chernobyl, is it that kind of thing? Yeah, it looks interesting. I've got an infrared camera, they're pretty interesting, but I don't know if you'd have much use for one. Depends also if you mean a thermal infrared one or shortwave infrared, as in, you know, it just sees infrared light. Depends what sort of game you're looking for, Patriotic Brit, and also bear in mind Fallout 1 and 2 and Fallout Tactics are very different to Fallout 3, 4, New Vegas and 76 and everything. Stalker is like quite a hardcore, I would say hardcore with like quotation marks, because it's, again, it's once you get into it, it's not all that hard, but a bit like Dark Souls or Demon Souls or any of them, you have to be in the kind of right mindset to play Stalker, else you'll get very, very frustrated quickly. But Stalker is a very good engaging game if you want sort of more realistic gunplay and stuff, even though it's got mutants and like things that break the laws of physics and whatever. But Fallout is kind of more of a darkly comic, sort of more of a traditional RPG. Both, I think, are very good game series. But personally, I like the Stalker series more, but I'd say I've probably spent more total hours of gameplay now in the Fallout series. But again, both are very good. Yeah, just slightly higher than normal background radiation because I've got the thorium lamp mantle near the probe. But, yeah. It's nice to have the Geiger counter ticking on the stream like this in the background. If I'm going to recommend games on this stream, it's going to have to be NBC, CBRN related games. So other than Stalker and Fallout games, I can't really think of many. I'm not a massive fan of the Metro series, but a lot of people like those. That's related to that. If you like kind of open world multiplayer games, there's one called Next Day Survival, which is kind of like a Stalker ripoff. But obviously, as the Stalker series died, but now maybe there will be a Stalker 2. I don't really blame a company for making a game with the aesthetic of Stalker. I want to get a Flare, Michael. I might get a Flare next year if I can afford one, because they do seem to be coming down in price constantly now. I think there's one called something like the Flare Scout, which is meant to be very good. And I'm pretty sure you can record to like a micro SD card on that one. But they're still like £400, £500 at the moment. But I think give it another year or two and they're probably going to be around £300. But I think the Flare Scouts can sort of see people and animals about 100 yards away in pitch black. If Stalker 2 ends up being good, yes, but I don't know if Stalker 2 will be good because obviously a lot of the original developers are not involved in its production. I hope it is good, but you never know. Cool. Are the books better than the games? Russian Vladimir Spetsnaz? Because personally I think it's the kind of series I might enjoy the books more than the games, because I just don't like it's kind of stop, have a cutscene, stop, have a cutscene. But I said that I just generally don't like games like that. It's not really a complaint of the Metro games in, you know, actual fact there is a lot I do like about the Metro games, it's just that's the sort of thing I don't really like about them. Alright, see you, Space. Oh yeah, like you said, Mike, I've not really played all that many Metal Gears, but yeah. Like you said, they've got the Davy Crockett's in them, haven't they? And you were saying about Bikini Atoll the other day. Let me look through my Steam library while the stream is going. And I'll call out any sort of nuclear-themed games. Or NBC, I'll just say, you know, chemical, any of that kind of stuff. Alright, let's go to RPG games. I'll go through those. Deus Ex kind of has some chemical and biological weapon themes to it, and the original Deus Ex is a very good game. So, recommending Deus Ex. The Fallout series, as said. Oh, Verdun has gas masks in them that are very well done if you like games like Verdun. I wasn't a massive fan of Rage, but Rage and Rage 2 are apparently quite good if you like those sort of games. Right, is OBS back on now? Let me know if you can hear me or not hear me. But yeah, I just had an error message there saying OBS has stopped working, it will try and reconnect. Okay, thankfully that didn't go off for too long. Right, yeah, cool. At least I know it restarts itself if it crashes, that's good. Anyway, where was I on my list? I said Rage 1 and Rage 2, didn't I? Command & Conquer, Generals has some chemical warfare elements into it, but a lot of the Command & Conquer games have kind of got CBRN themed stuff in them. In Euro Truck Simulator, you can drive trucks around that have chemicals in the back. I know that doesn't really count, but I like the Euro Truck and the American Truck Simulator games, they're good. I'll tell you a good game. It's a licensed game, but it's surprisingly good. The Mad Max game that came out a few years ago that was a tie-in with the film. That is surprisingly good, actually, Mad Max. A lot better than Rage. Stalker, Call of Pripyat, Shadow of Chernobyl, Clear Sky, all of those. There's an update for Arma 3 coming out, or it might already be out, a DLC for Arma 3 that's got NBC gear in it. Call of Duty Black Ops has got a plot involving NBC kind of stuff in it. They're the only ones that jump out at me anyway, looking at my list. Oh, Half-Life 2's got guys with gas masks in, like Half-Life 1, but it doesn't really have CBRN stuff really as a theme, does it? I suppose there's chemical bits that hurt you if you walk in them, and you wear a hazard suit. But, yeah, Half-Life's definitely worth playing, Half-Life 1 and 2, but I wouldn't really class them as games that have massive elements of CBRN type stuff in them. Oh, Duke Nukem's got it in the name, but I think gameplay-wise there's not much in Duke Nukem that would be CBRN related. Yep, there is that. But yeah, I was mostly thinking of Black Ops because the plot actually involves gas, not just people wearing gas masks in it. Yeah, I've played Red Alert 1 and 2. I've played loads of them, actually. I really like the Command & Conquer series. The original one, which I think's retrospectively called Tiberium Dawn, isn't it? Tiberian Sun. Yeah, all the old Red Alert ones, Command & Conquer Generals. Renegade, that first-person shooter, I didn't think that was too bad, even though a lot of people hated that. Okay, I've never played Ghost, so can't speak about that, but sounds like it has got a CBRN-related thing then. Oh yeah, it does. I completely forgot about that, Mike. Yeah, because part of the plot, isn't it, is about missing nuclear weapons or whatever, and then when you're playing as the Americans in, like, not Iraq, nuclear bomb goes off and kills your character. Spoiler. And then at the end of the game, you're playing as the SAS, aren't you, trying to stop another nuclear launch. So yeah, Call of Duty 4 definitely. I don't know why I didn't think of that. There's also guys wearing GP5s, but the GP5s still have the rubber caps in the bottom of them. Yeah, I think Modern Warfare came out in something like 2005 though, didn't it? So, I think if you don't know about the spoilers in the original Modern Warfare, afraid, you know, sorry about that, but yeah, I've said about Black Ops 1. It's got like a nerve agent plot, hasn't it? And I kind of like it's got all the sort of MK Ultra and brainwashing stuff going on in that. 2007, okay, so I was out by a year. Same year as Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl, isn't it? 2007. The only thing I've seen mistake-wise in that, Mad Dog, relating to NBC gear, and this is a very nitpicky thing, so it does not bother me really in the slightest. Well, there's two things, but one of them, lots of characters refer to actual Geiger counters as dosimeters, or dosimeters. Technically, a dosimeter is something like this that measures your amount of radiation. A Geiger counter measures the current amount of radiation. That's a very minor thing. And an even more minor thing is sometimes when you see the guys with PMG2s on, you can see it actually says RN5 on the filter, like they've got GP5 filters on it. Where I think technically they'd have had EO18K filters if they were using them like soldiers. But again, that's a very minor gripe. It doesn't really bother me at all. Oh yep, Singularity, I've got that. Singularity is an underplayed game, isn't it? But other than that, there's not much I can really fault with Chernobyl. I thought it overall was really, really good. And, you know, paid respect to a lot of the people that died there or suffered as a result of it. Yeah, I don't think some people know our time frames, do they, Mike, when we say we'll be doing something soon or in a while? They think it means, like, within the next couple of days, where people, like, said, oh, yeah, well, I'll meet up with Mike at some point this year, and then people are like, oh, have you met up with Mike yet? It's like, no, it's only been a week since you last asked. No, I haven't. As well as MK Ultra, Daniel, there's lots of other very interesting stuff, like US chemical, biological, and radiological experiments on US citizens, which are like really fucked up. But they're very interesting to read about, like where they essentially gave school children irradiated milk and oats, and like they spread diseases that weren't really that dangerous to see how vulnerable cities would be against biological attack. You know, so they spread something that was like a cold to loads and loads of people to see how easily a disease could be spread through, like, the public transport systems. Cool, do you know what mask you picked up, Bobby? But yeah, I have massive respect for, like, the Chernobyl liquidators and anybody involved in any sort of cleanup like that, because obviously they're risking their health and the health of their family and, like, potential children. You know, to save other people, essentially, from the effects of radiation. Yeah, Unit 731's another very fucked up thing. But you'd be surprised to see how many things the US has done similar to that, and Britain's done similar to that. It's kept under a lot more wraps, but we've done similar things as well. Thunderfoot's been very disingenuous again, apparently, Ian, regarding that. I don't watch his content at all because he did a completely disingenuous video where he was talking about nerve agents, and he was talking about, like, not properly synthesized sarin, and then talking about how it was as though it was actual sarin. And apparently he doesn't seem to grasp what the concept of a dirty bomb is when he talked about Chernobyl, from what I've heard about people who've watched his video. Like, where he was saying, like, you know, he didn't understand that, yeah, they're not physically saying the thermal explosion from the groundwater at Chernobyl hitting the, the molten core hitting the groundwater would be, you know, like, wipe all these places out, but the radiation release certainly would have wiped out most of Europe. Not exactly patriotic, Brett. I've got a video on the War Emergency Guidebook, which is, like, one of the government's what they do in the event of a nuclear war book. I was very lucky to get hold of. And I've done some of the things like how realistic are the Fallout games, where I go into some of the crazy real stuff that happened that was inspired by the Fallout games. Sorry, no, like, inspired the creation in the Fallout games, but, you know, it's more real than you'd think. Yeah, but sadly, the firemen basically died for nothing, didn't they? Because they ended up having to drop sand and everything on the reactor to put it out. The firemen basically just got irradiated for nothing. I know some of the firemen did survive who were lucky in certain places. I'm sure they probably put out fires and stopped them spreading. But, you know, like, the guys who were just spraying the reactor weren't really managing anything, sadly. No, it was Japanese, Michael. It was Japanese in China, and most of the victims of it were Chinese. It was not Chinese. Yeah, as I've said that quite a few times before. This name cannot be insulted. As I've said, Apollo, for the most part, very realistic. There's bits where they have to take dramatic licenses, but they did a podcast series alongside it, where they explained all the bits where they kind of altered the truth a bit to make it work better as a TV show. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, I'd definitely recommend watching it. Because my uncle is a painter and decorator, and he was painting somebody's house, and they were on about the Cold War, and the guy said, oh, my mum and dad were in the emergency council for Wiltshire, and he was saying, oh, my nephew's really interested in all that sort of stuff. He goes, well, you can have all their files if he wants them, because I've got no use for them. So then apparently he went into his attic and got down all these, like, nuclear official books. So yeah, my uncle, the guy didn't want any from him, he gave him my uncle for free, and my uncle gave him me. And the guy said if I didn't want him, then I could just bin him. But I've obviously kept him. But Well, I'll have to wait a couple of years first, won't I? This name cannot be insulted, but I definitely will play it, unless it looks like it's got microtransactions in and other crap. What do you mean by emergency console, Seb? What are you on about at the moment in regards to what we're on about? If you mean council, as in, like, a group of people, you know, like, if you're not familiar with what the word council is, I don't really know how to describe that, but basically they had different regions of the UK had like local governments that were meant to take over in the event of a nuclear war, because obviously there'd be massive disruptions to communications lines. So basically, like, a mini country would be formed like a feudal state by each of the kind of regional governments. Yeah, but they say that in the thing, don't they, Michael, that she's an amalgamation of lots of different scientists. And that doesn't bother me because, you know, they never claim that she was real. Yep, I've got them stored where sunlight won't damage them. But sadly, a lot of the book is already very faded because it was just kind of typewritten out. Like done with a typewriter, so you can see in places they didn't have as much ink on the ink reels. So, you know, some of the pages are very faint regardless. Yeah, Stalker 2 pre-order pack comes with a real GP5 filter, 100% safe to use. Yeah, sadly I can imagine that. Yeah, no problem. I wasn't sure what you're on about when you said console. I thought you were on about like there was some sort of computer system. I mean, there's the Geiger counter ticking in the background there, but yeah, council, war emergency guidebook, nuclear councils. I'd want an actual firing SLR. This name cannot be insulted. That's not Wiltshire, is it, Ian? The one from the BBC Panorama documentary, isn't that Hull? Where they talk to the controller guy, who's like, oh yes, I have the power of life and death. But I bet they'd all have been like that. They find, like, you know, budget Hitlers and put them in charge of killing people. Because they'd be the sort of sad pricks that would love a job like that, wouldn't they? No, was it on Discord or on here, Chris? But I don't think I've seen a comment from you on here yet, Chris. That's your first one I've just seen. So I didn't catch your last comment if it was on here. I've not checked Discord since this morning. Oh yeah, Mike, when I was rewatching some of that, I know what bit you mean now with the room with the hole in the ceiling and all the wires going out when they're manning the lunar rovers. Yeah, I when you said you had that in a nightmare or a dream, I know which bit you mean now. Yeah, please do, Chris, but bear in mind sometimes the YouTube chat just deletes messages and we don't even see them because YouTube thinks you said a bad word or something. Which ones are PFR10 filters? What mask do they connect to? Because I don't recognise the name of it. Oh, do you just mean the Scott particulate filters? No, they're not, because they're literally just paper. I'll get one out to show you if you mean that one, because that's the one that's come up when I've googled it. But if you mean this filter, no, it's literally a paper HEPA filter. Not dangerous at all. I mean, maybe if you damaged it to the point that you're inhaling the paper from it, it would be bad, but no. Paper filters like this can't really expire unless they get damaged. Eventually, after too much use, they clog, but they don't really expire. That's the great thing with particulate filters. It's only charcoal filters that technically expire. I had a nightmare the other night that was related to Chernobyl. Sort of related to Chernobyl. Like, you know how in a nightmare or a dream you know it's related to something even if there's not many similar characteristics. But it was basically like where I was kind of in a town sort of thing, and then there was a radioactive leak or something. And then they weren't really evacuating people, and then it suddenly was jumping around, you know, where like we were investigating stuff and there were like lots of dangerous things around, a bit like Stalker, like anomalies or whatever. I can't remember if they're mutants or anything like that in it. But Well, bear in mind, I don't think I actually have any VPUs, other than, masks with regular voice diaphragms. I mean, I think they make a lot of sense if you've got them connected to radio equipment, for obvious reasons, where you could have both a thing act as a VPU and connect it to a radio thing. But I don't really see the point of them over a regular voice diaphragm for a lot of other things, especially for the bulk they add to the mask and the ones that need batteries in them and things like that. If that makes sense. I mean, because I've not got any, I can't say, oh yeah, this is really, really like a good or bad thing, but I can see the point of them in certain uses. Probably actually more civil than military, where if you had like police that needed to give instructions in an emergency so people could definitely hear them, then a voice projection unit like that would be good, yeah, but I can't really see the point, to be honest, where lots and lots of military masks now have really giant ones that look like they weigh a lot just strapped onto the front of the mask. That is a mini monitor 510 or 510, which has an alpha probe on it, so it does alpha, beta and gamma. It's kind of like a scientific lab one. These filters, unless they're 40mm NATO RD40, so unless you put extra washers in the GP5, they won't fit. If you wanted to just force it on a GP5 for cosplay reasons, you could do that and it'd be perfectly safe. I don't know how legal that would be, so I'll say no to that. There is a nuclear bunker on one of the dual carriageways or bits of motorway near us, Michael, but you can't see much of it. You can kind of see where it's cut into the hill, but I think it's one of those abandoned, not used ones now. Yeah, I could definitely understand it for like armed police as well, or if they have to shout certain instructions and they're wearing a mask, then that makes a lot of sense. Because obviously if they have to give people adequate warning before they're allowed to open fire, like armed police, drop your gun, whatever, then yeah, that would make perfect sense for them to have VPUs, so I can get it for their kind of use. But like I said, the main thing I can't understand it for is where if you'd have lots and lots of soldiers in a war zone, where they're expected to have the VPUs with the masks and all the other stuff in their kit bags, and them somehow not to get damaged or the batteries to run out, I can see the reason VPUs would be good, but I just can't see them like as a mainstream military thing. Like regular voice diaphragm, sure, but putting like a big battery VPU unit on a mask, I personally can't see the logic, to be honest. Any kind of particulate filter, Missouri kid. So anything like this, but obviously you have to have one that fits a GP5. But a Polish FP5 filter will fit it and has a particle filter included. Not about that one, but I know there was the Mayak incident well before Chernobyl Apollo where they literally dumped loads and loads of nuclear waste into a lake. If you're confusing the two, but as far as I'm aware of Chernobyl, they just had the vehicle graveyards and they buried lots of stuff. Because they actually did a proper clean-up at Chernobyl. But there was a previous Mayak incident where they literally just dumped loads and loads and loads of stuff in just like a lake. And then eventually they did concrete over the lake, like decades later. What country are you in, Frosty? And then I might be able to take a guess what the mask is. Is Love Island related to CBRN stuff, Patriotic Brit? Like, would you get a biological disease if you had sex with the people on it? Is that related? But I've never watched Love Island, though. It's one of those things where people at work try to talk to me about it, and my face is just kind of like that. Iceland. So I wonder if they use old Finnish surplus masks then, or if they use modern Finnish masks. I really don't know. I can imagine a parody of that now, Mike, if it is somewhere like in the Pacific or whatever, where there's it's like a Trinity and Beyond test. Like they're on their beach or whatever it is, and then all of a sudden Castle Bravo just wipes them out. I don't know, I find that No, if it's a link, it won't let you put it in the chat. I don't know, and that's not me saying you can't do it. It's YouTube saying you can't do it. It's an anti-fog kit, Bobby. Hang on, I can show you. I should have one in my drawer. One of these, yeah? It's the plastic inserts that go in Soviet masks, or the things that actually make lenses in the PTM1 mask. So yeah, it's literally, they'd be in circles because this is one I've already cut, but it's literally that. Plastic film. There's an actual old poster that says the enemy is syphilis, and it has a picture of a Mark V gas mask on it, or a Mark IV gas mask, which is quite funny. Which is basically telling soldiers to be careful where they stick their dick. But, you know, I find stuff like that quite funny. I'm pretty sure Love Island is kind of, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it's something IngSoc make for all the proles to watch, yeah. But I've never watched it, so I know people go on it, commit suicide quite a lot. I'm not saying that like I find that funny, but, you know, it's kind of one of those weird ironic things, isn't it? Well, I want to be a TV star, now I've killed myself. But, you know. Was that the one where they dropped it from a B-52? Zero. Because I know there was one where they had like an accident with a B-52 and they dropped the bomb, and then most of the arming circuits went off even though they weren't meant to. And then the US was too cheap to excavate the bomb properly, so they just bought the field the nuclear bomb was on, and then they just like wired it off. I've been streaming for 1 hour and 36 minutes now, and I will be on for another 24 odd minutes. No, not Love Island. There was a thing with a B-52 where they accidentally dropped a nuke. Nazi. You can like find a list of nuclear incidents where they like accidentally did things in nuclear bombs and things like that, and there's one where a B-52 had to jettison a nuke because it was like crashing or something. And when they jettisoned the nuke, the arming circuits weren't meant to start, but most of them did start. The only problem with the Teespring suits, I've got one I don't know tutorial, is they're kind of designed as a disposable suit because a lot of it uses kind of like sellotapey stuff that's meant to be sticky for a short period rather than having like proper straps on them or Velcro. And the Teespring suits crinkle horribly every time you walk. So you're walking around and it sounds like somebody rustling a paper bag. That's happened more than once, Nazi. So there's several incidents of them accidentally dropping nukes that haven't gone off. Well, the US did enough nuclear tests so they don't have to pretend to drop one by accident. You can work that out from my username. This name cannot be insulted. I don't know where it went. 1 minute it was there and then it's not. Probably be in the last place I looked for it. Yeah, I've heard that, Michael. There's lots of really scary incidents in the Cold War, but yeah, one of them wasn't it, that like 0000 was like the default launch code for nukes and they didn't bother changing it for ages. But yeah, there's loads of crazy stuff like that, like firing computers that have nearly automatically launch nukes, things where they've done like war game exercises and then they've not told certain people involved, so then they start seeing things happening and they start going like down the DEFCON scale because they think there's like a real thing going on. Like, out of the masks I've got, I prefer generally Avon, but the MSA panoramic lens mask I've got, the Hour 3S is very nice. So I like that one. What do you mean, like a headache, Dylan? What filter are you wearing with it? Oh, without a filter. That's strange. Are you doing the straps up too tight and they like hurting your head or something like that? I don't know why you'd be getting headaches from wearing a mask without a filter. And how are we going to do that? This name cannot be insulted. I don't think you can, as I was saying earlier in the stream. And that's the thing with nuclear kind of stuff, that now everybody's got them, you can't de-escalate really. It's definitely not Scott. MOP is actually the US classification for NBC stuff, so MOP isn't an individual suit. But you probably mean US NBC suits, don't you? Yeah, they're probably alright, but you can't get them in the UK. I don't know if everybody had nukes that would necessarily be true, because I imagine there'd be a lot of nations that wouldn't have too many scruples about nuking each other. The major powers, I think, certainly can be trusted to a degree with nukes, but I wouldn't trust every country in the world to have nukes. Especially the ones that, like, constantly have little border conflicts or have, you know, constant terrorism problems. But in, yeah, anybody can sell anything for overpriced. Lots of people keep telling me, oh, I saw a GB5 for this price, so what, don't buy it. You know, a sucker's born every minute, apparently. I think they did some sort of agreement with the US, didn't they, to scale back on nuclear production? Yeah, I mean, in theory, Michael, I imagine the emissions from there are very, very low, barely higher than background, but yeah, like, any sort of Chernobyl sort of incident happens, and, you know, it would be really bad, wouldn't it? And, like, you can look up things like wind scale as well, can't you? I know that wasn't a power plant, it was, like, essentially either plutonium or uranium enrichment thing, wasn't it, wind scale. But, you know, even before the fire there, they'd been leaking nuclear stuff out for ages, and they were pretending that they hadn't. So, you know, leukemias and things in the area were much higher than the areas around it. And, you know, you could find bits of literally nuclear material just randomly around some of the towns, like Seascale and things like that. Did you know the US nuked space during some of their nuclear stuff, Nazi? Keep the politics off of here, Mad Dog. You'll get a timeout for that. I know you're kind of being related to the thing, but as I said, people who just keep randomly bringing up politics and these piss me off because they're trying to start an argument. They wouldn't reach the sun. I think the sun's a bit too many, bit too far away, isn't it? For the nukes to reach the sun. No, I've not heard of that 64 system. It's pretty interesting. I only really buy as many boots as I need. So I've got a few different pairs of boots, but not many. I used to have some really good German boots, but they're either German or Austrian, but they've fallen apart now, and I currently have some Austrian military boots, which are alright, but not as good as the previous pair of boots I had. Wouldn't that mess up all the tidal stuff on Earth if we nuked the shit out of the moon? Depends if you think you'll need it, I don't know, tutorial. But if you're getting just a cheap rubber NBC suit, sure, it's worth it. Depends how much you want to spend. This name cannot be insulted, but as I said before, probably things like Polish L1, L2 suits for 30 odd pounds. I don't know, Dylan. That is far, far outside of my expertise. I'm surprised the US didn't try stuff like that, though, during when they did all the crazy bomb tests. Why don't we nuke the sun to see what happens? We cannot allow a sun nuking gap. Yeah, but what if the Nazis on the moon retaliated? Okay, how would you use nukes to solve global warming? I'm curious now. Polish L1 and L2 suits, Michael. They're rubberized. I've got videos of them on my channel. But the Polish L1 suit I especially like. It's the 2-part one. Although I use the top part with fishing waders rather than using the actual trousers that came with it. And they're kind of just like nice rubber NBC suits that aren't too hot and uncomfortable. Probably this name cannot be insulted, but it generally just depends on getting the sizes right. There's very few masks I've got that just won't fit me full stop, even though I've got the right sizes for my face. But most modern British masks as well have good sort of peripheral seals on them, so they probably would fit you fine anyway. So I'll be on for another 15 minutes if people want to ask any more sensible questions, or at least silly but fun questions related to NBC kind of stuff. I don't know, to be honest. In theory, I guess they could make something like that, but if a bullet went through it, wouldn't you also be dead? You know. So there's no point in the suit resealing up, is there, if it's already the bullet's already punched a hole in you? And wouldn't the bullet be carrying a chemical agent through it as well, on the bullet, if it's been shot through the air and there's like chemical mists in the air? So even if it resealed instantly, you've still got like a poison bullet going to you. My favourite mask that's not an Avon one is probably my Forshida F2A4. But I also do really like that MSA one I've got recently, and my Scott M98. It would break the filter, depending on what kind of caliber or cartridge you shot it with. Maybe the bullet would go all the way through the filter, maybe it would get lodged in the filter, maybe it would ricochet off, but the filter would certainly be destroyed. Probably still kill the person you shot anyway. Go on then, patriotic Brit. That's interesting. That's like some very primitive biological warfare, isn't it? Of course I remember the videos I've made, Frosty. The only times I don't remember videos is if, like I said about that Polish MP5 one earlier, had I done helmet tests with a very specific mask, because often that's where I can kind of forget without, unless I check if I'd done a video like that, but... well, if they're in liquid form, you would literally see the liquid pooling on the suit, because the suits are water impermeable. So it looks just like kind of water droplets sitting on the suit. But again, it depends on the chemical, because some of them will look just like clear, like water. Some of them will be quite oily and discoloured, depending on what the chemical weapon in question is. I don't know if there are things like UV lights that will show up certain types of chemical weapons, I don't know, but generally you just decontaminate people just to be safe. Anyway, if they might have been exposed. Yeah, it's a lot better now, isn't it? Not really, Clorox. There's quite a few interesting old things like that, isn't there, though, Patriotic Brit, where... like, there's the smallpox blankets thing, Britain did to wipe out a load of Native Americans, where they gave them blankets, but they'd got smallpox germs on the blankets on purpose. And because sort of Europeans had become pretty much immune just from having smallpox for so long at that point to smallpox, it wiped the Indians out really severely. Just like in the War of the Worlds, the aliens are wiped out by, the Martians are wiped out by the common cold and bacteria, because they have no resilience to it. There isn't a black bag above the poster. I assume you're looking at the PTM1 gas mask, but it's not a black bag. Oh, no, sorry, not a gas mask, a fallout mask. Which film's that one in, Peach? I've not seen Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, if you're on about that one. I've got on Blu-ray and I haven't watched it yet, and I don't really plan on watching it, to be honest. Hope you didn't pay too much for an M10. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it as an actual mask other than just using it for particle filter reasons, but it looks cool. Don't know if I'd think the War of the World films are very good. Patriotic Brit. The Jeff Wayne's musical version of War of the Worlds is my favourite album ever. Good old 70s prog rock, and it's one of the most accurate versions of it to the book as well. So personally, rather than watching a film of War of the Worlds, I would advise people take substances they are happy to take, and I won't say more than that, and listen to the prog rock version in the dark. Yep, it's what's ticking in the background. There's more than one Geiger counter on the shelf behind me as well. $10 Canadian's, yeah, very sensible price for it. That's what, like £6 or something over here. It's, yeah, barely anything. Yeah, good price to have the bag and all that. Well, gas masks don't block carbon monoxide though. You can certainly block out some of the chemicals in smog and the particles, but you can't block carbon monoxide with a conventional filter. Good. Take it you like it then if you've got it on both vinyl and when you say and the book, or as in an audio book of it, do you mean, Patriotic Brett? Well, it's because they've got a speaker on them, and when radioactive particles enter the Geiger counter, they tick. Right, I'll show you, if you haven't seen that Geiger counter, because we're near the end of the stream, what it sounds like when it gets to 2,000 counts per second. There you go. I'll flick it off now because it's been on for the majority of the stream. That has absolutely nothing the New Prussian Empire to do with this stream. I'll remove that comment. And I'm not going to, as I said, get into political things here. It's interesting to read about, but not on my streams, thank you. Did you know this name cannot be insulted, that they used to have a thing called radioactive quackery where they convinced people that irradiating themselves to the point of death would actually make them healthier? If not, look into that. It's very interesting. Yeah, they die pretty easily, Peach. That's why the Red Forest in Chernobyl went to the Red Forest pretty quickly, because all the trees died in the path of the radiation. Yes and no, James. They protect from some of the chemicals in smoke and some of the particulates, but they won't protect you from the heat of the smoke damaging your lungs, and certain things like carbon monoxide will still get through the filter. Don't forget to like the stream, everybody, before I end it, because there's a few new people on now who haven't obviously liked the stream yet. Yep. There was that guy, wasn't there, who said he felt great until his jaw fell off and they buried him in a lead coffin. With living scarlet feelers crawling. Patriotic rip. Yeah, we know that I don't know tutorials because it said that on the credits of Chernobyl, but yeah. Well, people thought they died because of the massive amount of radiation, but then it was only like later on did anybody track them down. And then one of them lived quite a long time but died of a heart attack at one point, and then two of them are still alive, thankfully. Well, carbon dioxide isn't harmful to you, is it? Unless you're breathing it in instead of air. Like, you know, pure carbon dioxide. But there's carbon dioxide in the air all around anyway, so I don't know if a gas mask would filter it, but it wouldn't matter. Anything thick enough can, Dylan, but it's not going to be good enough for personal protection. That's why you need, like, thick steel, lead or concrete to stop gamma. But in Protect and Survive, I'll show you something in the Protect and Survive book that's actually accurate. You know when they have those like little lean-to shelters, like these kind of things? That would actually protect you from gamma radiation. I know some people might doubt that, but filling up loads of bags with soil and putting loads of furniture and things in the way, that would actually protect you a bit from gamma radiation, because it diminishes the amount that can get through. It would certainly stop all the beta, alpha can't get through it, and having all that stuff, if you made it thick enough, would stop gamma. So that is some of the actual good advice in Protect and Survive. For protecting yourself from irradiation from fallout, yeah, that is a good piece of advice there. Yeah, interesting enough, Mike, something funny about that, well, not funny, but a woman that does the amateur dramatics thing I do, she's retired now, but she used to be a radiologist, or whatever they're called, like, you know, people who did x-rays and all those kind of things. And she finds Geiger counters and that quite interesting, and she's saying a thing they don't do anymore, but a lot of x-ray operators used to do, was take pictures of their hands to, you know, check all their x-ray equipment was working each day. And she said those people often, you know, started developing horrible cancers and things like that because, you know, every day, day in, day out, they'd keep exposing themselves to x-rays, not really aware of the risks. Because obviously if you go for one x-ray every now and then, it's not really a problem. But if you're working with an x-ray machine every day, you know, and constantly exposing yourself to x-rays, then you're massively increasing the risks of cancers. They're deactivated, James, so they can't be loaded. No, that's a myth, Rob. pH gas hoods use something called like phenol, whatever it was, hence the initials. Depends on what the source is, Mike. The stronger the source, the further range it's got. But some of the radioactive materials I've got that give out gamma radiation, as soon as you're less than a foot away from them, there's no radiation hitting you anymore. Oh, it's like necrosis, isn't it? Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, he's done cellular damage to his hands there. Oh, it's radiological rather than radiation, but yeah, it's because I think they wanted to remarket it, but I don't like the term CBRN. I prefer ABC as in atomic biological chemical, or NBC nuclear biological chemical, because yeah, although some stuff could be radiologically protective, when they call them CBRN suits, they're actually not, you know, and things like that. Not related to the stream Killer Bambi, but that is a so high, isn't it, one? I've got a video on it. Search Katana on my channel and you get all the details on that. Well, if the gas mask makes an airtight seal to your face and you've got a filter, or without a filter, yeah. But yeah, it would protect you from tear gas normally. Radiological as in gamma rays and X-rays, basically. Radiation damage. Because in NBC, what they're actually referring to is nuclear fallout, which is mostly alpha radiation, maybe a bit of beta, but yeah, NBC suits were meant to protect you from alpha radiation, not really beta, gamma, or X-rays. So yeah, radiological, I suppose, should be beta, gamma, X-rays. If it's thick enough, it will protect you from beta as well, Luke, but that's it. It can't protect you from gamma. HBO or Sky, or you can buy the Amazon. On Amazon you can buy the Blu-ray or DVD, pre-order it. Alright, I'll be finishing the stream in a couple of minutes, so thanks everybody. This 2 hours has gone quite quick actually. Tomorrow I will do a stream, but tomorrow the stream will not be 2 hours, it will just be an hour one. I'm not sure on the exact time of day yet I'll do the stream tomorrow. I have to see what I've got going on, because I'm still not completely sure of my plans for tomorrow. As for Thursday, there won't be a stream. Friday I can do a stream in the morning, but I can't do a stream in the evening. Yep, £22 for a Mark III Riot helmet is a very good price. Just make sure though, Zach, what's the name of the seller? Mike, if you're still on, do you remember the name of the seller that didn't send you a Mark III when he had a picture of a Mark III? Just for Zach, just so he doesn't get scammed by that bloke who didn't send you the right Riot helmet. That's the only thing I was sort of thinking, if he's found a Mark III for sale. But yeah, Mark III Riot helmets are worth it. Yeah, but what happened is I gave Mike some money for his birthday so he could buy a Mark III Riot helmet. Mark I Riot helmets are still good as well, don't get me wrong, but we found a seller that was specifically selling a Mark III in his size. So he ordered it and got sent a Mark I. So he was basically, you know, scammed by that seller. What do you mean by the Soviet GP6? Do you mean the GP5M? There isn't a GP6. I would not use a rebreather against smog, because you're more likely to accidentally suffocate yourself. Just use a particle filter mask, like just an NBC filter mask, that'll work fine for smog. No, the seller didn't accept responsibility, so he just left them a load of bad feedback and everything. He can still make use of that helmet, but yeah, it's a dick move, isn't it? Because like apparently they put in a little bit of the thing. The Riot helmet you get may not be the one pictured, even though they, you know, there might be, like, they say something like, there might be minor changes, but a Mark I and a Mark III are very different. That's more than a minor change. Okay, there you go. So, G.I. Joe Outdoors is the guy not to buy from, that sent Mike the wrong item and then didn't want responsibility of it. So if it's a different seller, whoever it was that was just looking now, you're probably alright. But yeah, make sure if they list it as a Mark III, you actually get your Mark III, know what to look out for. Right, I'll watch some films in the evening then, Mike, this week, I reckon. But I'll be acting Thursday and Friday anyway. No difference, this name cannot be insulted. Yeah, but Mike still got screwed over, so it doesn't matter, does it? Don't give them any business whatsoever, Nazi, if they're, you know, a twat that sends out the wrong kind of masks, not mask helmets. Right, anyway, I'm going to finish the stream now. It's been 2 hours and 5 minutes to stream, so a fairly long one. So, thanks for liking the stream, everybody, and all that. As said, I'll have a stream tomorrow, but I don't know what the time is. I'll probably do a stream at a different time of day for people in a different time zone tomorrow, but at the moment I don't know what time it'll be. But thanks for watching. Alright, see you all. Have a good evening. Goodbye.